Well, there was more Miz and Snoopy, and the weekend attendance was 161,892. What do you think the real weekend attendance was? Did they say they had like 65,000 tickets out for each night a day or two beforehand?
Something like that. Probably like 135,000 or something.
But this counts everybody that was working in the stadium, all the parking attendants, anybody that was around, EMT crew, homeless bums. It is California, sleeping in the street outside in the parking lot.
Spirits who died during the construction of the building.
Jimmy Hoffa is buried underneath that. They counted him too. So Miz was upset at Snoop because he put him in a match the previous night. And Snoop said, "You want to do it again?" And I guess Miz wasn't done complaining because he's like, "Well, you ruined my suit. I don't come to your studio and show you how to rap." And I'm thinking, boy, if they brought out LA Knight right now and he just beat the shit out of the Miz, how big you think that pop would have been?
I was waiting to figure out who it would be. That was my first guess, just because of what's been happening. Why not capture that moment, have that here?
LA Knight in LA
That's
at
right.
WrestleMania beating up the Miz, the movie star.
Instead, this turned into one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. I was losing it watching this.
I couldn't laugh because I've told you before, Shane's my favorite one. I like him. He's got his picadillos, but he was a good kid. He's a nice guy at heart, right? And I guarantee you that he probably called Vince and said, "Dad, can I do Mania one more time? I've been working out. I'm in shape." And I guarantee you and I want to redeem myself. What was it? The Royal Rumble last year. He didn't make a good impression. And so they were going to have, folks, if you didn't see this, they were going to have Shane come down and have an impromptu match with The Miz and do what I assume Shane was going over. So Snoop.
You're not doing it any justice. This was such an all-time hysterically awful segment.
I'm just saying what they were going to do.
His music hits. You hear that? Here comes the money thing, and then here comes old Shane McMahon bopping all around the stage doing his thing. You already knew that something was going to go wrong.
Well, because he was huge. He looked, did you see how puffy he was jacked up like a jacked up Dana White with hair. His face was round. And he's almost 55 now, right? Because I'm over 60. He's about 7 or 8 years younger than me. Anyway.
Shane McMahon is 53 years old.
Okay. So he's huge. He's wearing the tight shirt, showing the big arms, and he's dancing and doing the Ali shuffling the whole 9 yards. And when he gets in the ring, he gets the microphone. And as he's didn't really do a promo just to say to the fans, "Hey, I love you guys. Thank you for that response." Sends his love. He was blowed up already because he'd been so hyper. And then Snoop here, he didn't exactly set this up in a stellar fashion. He's just like they played the music. Shane comes out. He said, "Let's get a referee." And no, you're in there. I'm out here or whatever. And the bell rings. And Shane immediately starts with the rabbit jabs. Boom, boom, boom. And Miz is back in the corner. And then Shane backs Miz up and shoots him off and drops down. And before I tell the people what happened, Brian, in any wrestling school, one of the most elementary fucking things that you would ever learn is you don't shoot a guy off and either let him come off the ropes and give you a move, and you don't shoot a guy off by the arm and drop down. If you drop down, you need to shoot a guy off out of a headlock because then you're committing an offensive move in defense, right? He's in control. You're throwing him off of you. When you're in control of the guy's arm, you're throwing him into the ropes and then dropping down to avoid a move that he shouldn't be able to give you. Have I made that somewhat clear?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So Shane arm whips Miz off and drops down because he's got to get some space so he can do his leapfrog, because Shane has, I guess, decided one of the things he wants to do to show his athleticism is his big high leapfrog.
When he was like in the air in a leapfrog, you think he's thinking, wait until Endeavor sees this. They're going to need me around.
You know what? When he hit the height, that was a high leapfrog, and he spread those legs out, and goddamn, you could just hear the front row, and it would have spread, starting the "You've Still Got It" chant. They went, "You've still," and then he landed. And then he buckled. And he went down to the left and spun around over on his fucking hands and knees. And now Miz is coming off the ropes. And he, after he's been leapfrogged, he's coming off the ropes, and he sees Shane. Shane is down. Shane is down, as Rene Goulet might say. So he runs past Shane thinking Shane has stumbled. And Shane will stand up. If I just run past him and come off the other side, Shane will be back up on his feet by the time I come back to him. And so Miz runs past Shane, who's on his hands and knees, starting to get up. And as Shane gets up and puts weight on his leg, he realizes that he can't get up, and he crumples face first to the mat. And Miz comes off the other side of the ropes. And it's like this time Shane tried to fucking drop down for real and trip Miz's feet out from under him. And Miz just had to stop and stand there and stare at him. And then Shane is groveling on the ground because he's turned over on his back, and he's yelled something, probably, "I'm fucked." And then Miz backs up in the corner and just has this blank look. And then the referee goes check on Shane, who obviously cannot get to his feet. And
I love that this is a new McMahon thing. The surprise appearance and then blowing out your quads.
All right, you've told the people he didn't blow. I thought he blew his knee, but apparently the news after the match was he tore his quad, the same thing that Vince did. And that's the only thing that's funny at all about him. Poor Shane. I was so embarrassed for him. But the doctor comes in and is checking on him. And here comes, of all people. Now, you see the referee, the female referee. She puts her hand to her ear. She's trying to hear her earpiece. I'm pretty sure they're probably telling her something, but I didn't see her have time to talk to Snoop. Saying, I didn't see Miz. Miz just stood there with a blank look on his face. Snoop Dogg comes back in and said, "No, it can't be like that," and fucking punches Miz. And down goes Miz. And then I think that the referee may have told him, "Yeah, do it again," or Miz called it or something, because Miz gets back up and he nails Miz again. And then Snoop Dogg, as they've slid Shane out, you never saw him again. Snoop Dogg gives Miz the stiffest people's elbow. He actually did jump up in the air and drop elbow first on this man's sternum. It looked like shit until it got there, and then it hurt. And covered him 1, 2, 3. So Snoop Dogg pins Miz at WrestleMania.
I watched the press conference afterwards. And Triple H put him over big time. He said a lot of wrestlers in that position would have frozen, not known what to do.
Yeah, like Miz.
This guy, we always knew he was a fan. He's done other things. He showed us that he actually has instincts here to go in there, and he saved the segment. And if this is the last appearance of Shane McMahon,
that's the sad thing. I feel so bad for Shane, and his kids are so nice, and he's just... It's so embarrassing.
Can you imagine? The last time he's there is that Royal Rumble where he didn't look that great in the match, and it appeared something was off, and then we found out something was off, and they told him never come back ever again. And then he shows up here and just seconds into it.
Seconds. And I'm
laughing too much. I'm sorry. I find it so funny. It's so funny.
And he's fucked his life up for the next 6 months. Because that will be surgery and recovery and rehab. And
if it worked for Tony Khan, the company would pay for it.
Yeah, I wonder if he's going to turn this one into the WWF for the new company.
What's his WrestleMania payoff going to be?
Oh my God! Have I told you the Glenn Kulka story?
No,
you remember that, right?
I remember Glenn Kulka, but what story?
Glenn Kulka was a big muscle builder, tough looking guy that had played. He was from Canada, and he had played for the Canadian Football League, and he was a big time amateur athlete, and he was an early developmental guy. He before I came down to OVW, when they were sending guys down to Memphis to Randy Hale's Power Pro Wrestling, Glenn was part of that. He was very early developmental program, like first half a dozen or so guys.
Yeah, that's where I remember him from, Memphis.
Yeah. And he was a badass looking guy, and he was a nice guy and kind of got the picture and everything, but he had just started training. And so Dr. Tom Pritchard had worked with him, and he's one. Dory Funk Jr. had worked with him, and he'd been in Memphis and everything. And I can't remember the particulars, but somehow or another, there was a big independent show in his hometown that they had booked, and they booked him on so he could go and he could appear. It was either his hometown or the college he graduated from or whatever, but there's a big crowd in this gym, and they're all there to see Glenn Kulka. And he comes out and makes the big entrance and gets in the ring and jumps up on the second rope and does the thing where, yay! And, he's got his arms up, and the crowd is exalting him, and he's so fired up and he's so happy. This infectious crowd behind him. He jumps off the second turnbuckle and turns and jumps back into the middle of the ring and lands and breaks his fucking leg.
Oh, man.
Boom! Goes down he goes. And they carried him out.
That's the thing. Whoever Shane said goodbye to in the back before he went out, like seconds later, he was being carted right past them.
And well, while we're on the subject of embarrassing debuts, remember Mike Furnas's hot tag in Knoxville?
That was for you.
Yes. Doug Furnas, the world's strongest man, an incredible Japanese star. He went to the University of Tennessee, was a football star, was legitimately one of the strongest men in the world of power. Everybody knows who Doug Furnas is, right? And he's the one that ripped the door off the cage in Knoxville that led to me stealing it for Kane to rip the door off the Hell in a Cell. And he called me when I was running Smoky Mountain and said, my brother Mike, who also played football at the University of Tennessee, was a good amateur athlete. My brother Mike, he wants to learn how to wrestle. If you guys will train him and break him in, I'll come out. Because by then, Doug was living in California. He went to Japan so much for Baba, like every 6 weeks. But he would come out and work like the big Christmas show and some of my big events in Knoxville, right? Oh, okay, great, a local hero. So we trained Mike as best we can. Horner worked with him, and I think Tom and Jimmy Del Rey, because we were going to make the match the Furnas brothers against the Heavenly Bodies, Tom Pritchard and Jimmy Del Rey. So he worked with Mike, and Mike made some TV appearances, and he was not either a natural in the ring or a natural promo. You could tell it wasn't he wasn't his brother Doug, unfortunately. Not to say he wasn't a nice fella. But, Doug's going to be in, right? So we shoot the angle where we beat up Mike Furnas. He calls his brother Doug. Christmas night in Knoxville, the big event, our biggest crowd, one of our big crowds of the year, that and the big August show. And it's going to be the Furnas brothers against Heavenly Bodies. Well, because Mike was going to continue on with us, and continue wrestling, whereas Doug would only make an appearance here and there. And also because Doug was more experienced, Doug said, I'll sell, get the heat on me, and then let's give Mike the tag. He can make the comeback, and then we'll do the finish. And that way I can get it right for Mike and he'll look like a bit, okay, perfect, right? So Doug Furnas, the Heavenly Bodies get him in the ring and he's selling his ass off and they're kicking the shit out of him. And I'm drawing the referee and they're double teaming him and people are getting hot. We're trying to build for this big hot tag. And finally the Heavenly Bodies go for their, I think it was, if I remember right, Tom is holding Doug and Jimmy comes off the top with his big moonsault body block and Doug moves and Jimmy flattens Tom and they're both down and Doug struggles to the corner and dive and makes the tag and Tom's coming up and as Mike steps through the ropes, he runs as fast and as hard as he can, 3 steps and leaps up in the air and hits Tom Pritchard with a flying clothesline and Tom takes a big bump and Mike spins around in the air and lands on the mat and continues rolling and rolls all the way out of the ring on the other side and drops to the floor. Just couldn't stop himself and went right under the bottom rope and disappeared. And Jimmy Del Rey is coming up to take the second clothesline and turns around and Tom's laying there flat on his back and there's nobody else in the fucking ring. And then you see a hand come up on the other side of the apron and grab the bottom rope. And he pulled himself in and slid right back in and ran as fast as he could at Jimmy and leveled him with a clothesline. And goddamn, I've never. He went from the apron of one side of the ring, through the ropes, into the ring, through the air, down and under the bottom rope on the other side of the ring in like 2.5 seconds. Oh, God damn it.
Do you think it'll be SummerSlam or the Royal Rumble when Stephanie comes back to wave to the fans and blow out her quad?
The question is, maybe at Halloween they can have a special 3-legged race with Shane and Vince tied together. All right.
You know what's funny? Did Vince even blow out his quads last year? What happened when Vince couldn't take the stunner? He didn't blow out his quads, did he?
No, he just crumpled like a goddamn fucking used slinky.
And that's the same way Shane's legs went. He looked exactly the same. Every year there's going to be a segment where the McMahons come out there and just flop around the ring.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He walks, he talks, he crawls on his belly like a reptile. Shane McMahon. I feel so bad. No, with the stunner, Vince just, I think, well, I don't know.
You want to talk feeling bad? It was Shane, famous last words. Hey, Dad, we should buy UFC.
Yeah. So now let's see when they got home. Now, Vince says to Shane, well, Shane, goddammit, pal, you blew your quad out WrestleMania 30 seconds in. And he can say, well, you motherfucker, at the Royal Rumble, you blew both your quads just sliding into the ring. And then he can say, besides, I told you to buy that UFC. Now
That's
look
right.
where we are.
Oh, well, I told you WrestleMania was fun.
God damn it. But so anyway, who else fell out of the ring I can think of?
See, the problem is Shane's going to go, I can't let that be the last time I'm seen on the grandest stage of them all. And what's the other option? It's either I come out there and do the simple stuff or I dive off a giant structure.
Hey,
so I'm worried about what next time it'll be.
You know what? Here is a very interesting thing. Is the new $21 billion company to be named whatever that's not completely and totally operated by the WWE, are they going to allow a 53-year-old father of 2 who hasn't wrestled in several years come out and do something like that? Or even a 56-year-old Stone Cold Steve Austin or a however-year-old whoever the guy.
Well, it's funny. On CNBC earlier, Scott Wapner asked Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon, he said, what if Mr. McMahon, the character, wants to come out and do something in the ring? Is that okay? And before Ari Emanuel answered, Vince's like, he's dead. The character's dead. But Ari Emanuel said, yes, whatever he wants to do, he's allowed to do. So I think they're going to still operate under Vince's rules.
No, but think about this. Well,
I agree the liability is much bigger.
They might have until their legal department. Hey, Sinclair Broadcasting, they were a $1 billion company, at least on paper, when they bought Ring of Honor.
Point me to your legal department.
And listen here, we were in Charleston, West Virginia. I get a phone call from the legal department saying that the guys can't take part in a chicken wing eating contest at Hooters that night that was our sponsor. Or the fans couldn't, or the guys could, but the fans couldn't, or something. I said, what are you talking? Well, there's a liability. I said, wait a minute. So if one of these motherfuckers chokes on a fucking chicken bone at Hooters because we said, hey, get in a contest to see if you can eat more chicken wings than Jay Briscoe, they're going to be able to sue us? Oh, it could. I threw my cell phone all the way across the building. So what I'm saying to you is now that live in front of 60 to 80,000 people, depending on the report, and God and everybody on pay-per-view and streaming television, Shane McMahon seriously injured himself and is going to require surgery. He's 53 years old, doing a leapfrog. Are they gonna have another situation where, okay, if you're past such and such age, you can't participate, or you've got to pass a physical for any kind of interaction because they don't understand what can be worked and what can't be? I mean, Steve Austin could come out. He's not going to try to do a fucking leapfrog. He's got a bad knee. But he can still be Steve Austin, as we saw doing Steve Austin things. But will they be able to differentiate that between the people that can get by with it and do what they need to do and won't hurt themselves, and the people that obviously or apparently can't? And who's going to be determining that? The legal department? Liability? Multi-billions of dollars? It's not like, well, Dad said I could anymore. Anyway, and speaking of liability, the next match. But answer me that there, Brian Last. What do you think?
Until we're shown otherwise, I'm going to go under the assumption they're going to keep doing things the way they do it. They are better about these things than AEW. I think we will see at WrestleMania 40, Shane versus Dante Martin. The big match. But, Shane shouldn't be out there to begin with.
Shane's got a better chance of being on WrestleMania 40 than Dante Martin, but go ahead.
But Shane shouldn't be out there to begin with. There's a difference between a Steve Austin being billed to be there and used in a limited capacity to take advantage of his star power versus a 50-something who shouldn't be doing. It's one thing if Shane went out there and just delivered the bad punches. Okay. And then you set him up for Snoop to do something. But as soon as he went to do something physical that he can't do, it just made the whole thing look bad.
Well, and I'm not arguing with you about that. I'm saying that I think that somebody in the legal department wouldn't know the difference in how that could be handled.
Whose legal department? Does WWE maintain their own legal department, or is it part of Endeavor's? See, that's the thing. How many jobs in corporate are going to be eliminated because of redundancy?
And also duplication.